Chapter 10. I Ruin a Perfectly Good Bus. It didn't take me long to pack. I left the Minotaur horn in my cabin and took only a backpack with an extra change of clothes and a toothbrush. The camp store let me borrow $100 and 20 big gold coins called drachmas. Chiron gave Annabeth and me some ambrosia and nectar, the food and drink of the gods. But since we were only half god, it was to be used only if we were seriously hurt. Too much of it could burn up a half-blood. Annabeth was bringing her magic Yankees cap that made her invisible. It had been a birthday present from her mom, Athena. She also had a long bronze knife hidden in her shirt sleeve. Grover wore sneakers and pants so that he would look human. He took apples and tin cans to eat, and a satyr's favorite musical instrument, his reed pipes. We waved goodbye to the other campers, then hiked up Half-Blood Hill to the tall pine tree that used to be Talia, daughter of Zeus. Chiron was waiting for us. Next to him stood the surfer dude from the camp sick room. His name was Argus, and he was the camp's head of security. He had eyes all over his body, so he could never be surprised. "Argus will drive you into the city," Chiron said, "and he will watch for danger." Luke came running up the hill, carrying a pair of basketball shoes. "Hey, Percy," he panted. "Wait!" Annabeth blushed, the way she always did when Luke was around. "I thought maybe you could use these," said Luke, handing me a pair of sneakers. I took the sneakers. They looked normal, until Luke said a magic word. "Maya!" White birds' wings came out of the heels and began flapping. "Flying shoes," Grover said. Luke smiled. "Those helped me a lot when I was on my quest. They were a gift from my dad Hermes. Of course, I don't use them much these days." His expression turned sad. I didn't know what to say. It was cool enough that Luke had come to say goodbye. I'd been afraid he might be jealous of me for getting so much attention the last few days. But here he was giving me a magic gift. It made me blush almost as much as Annabeth. "Hey, man," I said. "Thanks." "Kill some monsters for me, okay?" said Luke. Then he left. I picked up the flying shoes and looked at Chiron. "Is it safe to use these?" "No," said Chiron. "It's too dangerous for you to fly in Zeus's territory. But Grover can use them." "Awesome," said Grover as I gave him the flying sneakers. I was wishing my dad had given me a cool magic item to help on the quest, something as good as Luke's flying shoes or Annabeth's invisible cap. "What am I thinking?" Chiron cried. "I have something very important from your dad." He pulled a pen from his coat pocket and handed it to me. It was an ordinary pen, black ink with a cap. I remembered the field trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, when I'd killed Mrs. Dodds. Chiron had thrown me a pen that turned into a sword. Could this be the same one? I took off the cap, and the pen grew longer and heavier in my hand. In half a second, I held a bronze sword. It was the first weapon that actually felt balanced in my hand. "The sword has a long and tragic history," Chiron told me. "Its name is Anaklusmos." I was surprised when I knew how to translate the ancient Greek name. That means riptide in English. "Use the sword only for emergencies," Chiron said, "and only against monsters. No hero should hurt mortal humans unless absolutely necessary. But your sword doesn't work on humans anyway." Why doesn't it work on humans? I asked. Your sword is celestial. It is deadly to monsters and to any creature from the underworld. But the blade will pass through mortals like a ghost. What about half-bloods? Can my sword hurt half-bloods? I asked. Yes. And since you are a demigod, Percy, you can be killed by either celestial or normal weapons. Good to know, I said. I touched the pen cap to the sword tip, and instantly, Riptide shrank to a ballpoint pen again. What happens if I lose the pen? I asked. That's the good part, Chiron said. You can't lose it. It will always go back into your pocket. Try it. I threw the pen as far as I could down the hill and watched it disappear in the grass. Now, check your pocket, said Chiron. Sure enough, the pen was there. Okay, that's extremely cool, I admitted. But what if a mortal human sees me pulling out a sword? Chiron smiled. No human will see your sword, Percy. When our world mixes with the human world, a mist is created. Humans cannot see through that mist. For the first time, the quest felt real. I was actually leaving Half-Blood Hill. Annabeth, Grover, and I were heading west to Los Angeles with no adult supervision, no backup plan, not even a cell phone. Chiron said monsters can follow cell phone signals. I had only a sword to fight off monsters and reach the land of the dead. Chiron, I said, was there a time before the gods? Yes, before the gods, the Titans ruled. That was called the Fourth Age. Right now is the Fifth Age, the time of Zeus. So what was it like when the Titans ruled? Before the gods? Even I am not old enough to remember that, child, but I know that when the Titans ruled the earth, it was a hard time for mortal humans. Humans lived without knowledge, and Lord Kronos did whatever he liked with them. After the Lord Zeus came to power, the good Titan Prometheus brought fire to humans, and humans began to learn how to make their lives better. Zeus punished Prometheus for that, but eventually the gods grew to like humans. But the gods can't die now, right? I mean, as long as humans are alive, they are alive. So even if I failed in my quest, I wouldn't mess up everything, right? Chiron gave me a sad smile. No one knows, Percy. The gods are immortal, yes, but so are the Titans. They still exist, but are locked away in pain so they won't cause trouble. I hope the same thing never happens to the gods. All we can do, child, is follow our destiny. How can we follow our destiny when we don't know what our future is? Relax, Chiron told me. Keep a clear head. Stay focused on the quest. And remember, you may be the only one to prevent the biggest war in human history. Well, that makes me feel a lot more relaxed, I said bitterly. Argus drove us out of the countryside and toward the city. It felt weird to be back in the world of mortals. So far, so good, I told Annabeth. 10 miles and not a single monster. She gave me an annoyed look. It's bad luck to talk that way, seaweed brain. Remind me again, Annabeth. Why do you hate me so much? Look, we're just not supposed to get along, okay? Our parents are rivals. My mom, Athena, and your dad, Poseidon, are always arguing. Why? She sighed. Lots of reasons. One time, my mom caught Poseidon with his girlfriend in her temple, which is very disrespectful. Another time, Athena and Poseidon both wanted to be the god of the city of Athens. My mom was chosen. Of course, Your dad was not happy about it. Traffic slowed us down. By the time we got into Manhattan, it was sunset and starting to rain. Argus dropped us off at the Greyhound station, not far from my mom and Gabe's apartment. Taped to a mailbox was a sign with my picture on it. "Have you seen this boy?" I ripped it down before Annabeth and Grover could notice. Argus made sure we got our bus tickets, then drove away. I thought about how close I was to my old apartment. On a normal day, my mom would be home from the candy store by now. Smelly Gabe was probably up there right now, playing poker, not even missing her. Grover saw me looking down the street. "Satyrs can read emotions," he said. "You're thinking about your mom and your stepdad, right, Percy? Do you want to know why your mom married Gabe?" "I've always wanted to know," I said. "Your mom married Gabe for you," Grover told me. "You call him smelly, and you're right. He smells so much like a human that he covers up your God smell. It was a very good thing for you. For years, the monsters couldn't find you because the smell of Smelly Gabe covered up your smell." "Gross," I said. "Your mom stayed with Smelly Gabe to protect you," continued Grover. "She was a smart lady. She must have loved you a lot to live with such a terrible man." Grover was right about my mom loving me a lot. Now that I knew why she had married Gabe, I missed my mom even more. I still didn't tell Grover or Annabeth the real reason why I had said yes to this crazy quest. The truth was, I didn't care about finding Zeus's lightning bolt, or saving the world, or even helping my father Poseidon out of trouble. Why should I care about my dad? He had never visited me, never helped my mom, never even sent her money to help raise me. He had only claimed me because he needed me to get the Master Bolt back. All I cared about was my mom. Hades had taken her unfairly, and I was going to make Hades give her back. Then I remembered what the oracle had said. "You will be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. You will fail to save what matters most in the end." Shut up, I thought. The rain kept coming down. Finally, the bus came. Grover started sniffing the air and looking nervous. "What is it?" I asked. "I don't know," he said tensely. "Maybe it's nothing." We got on board and found seats in the back of the bus. We put our backpacks on the shelf over our heads. As the passengers got on, Annabeth grabbed my knee. "Percy, look!" She was looking at an old lady who had just got on the bus. She wore a big orange hat over her face, but when she tilted her head up, her black eyes glittered, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Mrs. Dodds, definitely the same evil face. I scrunched down in my seat. Behind her came two more old ladies, one in a green hat, one in a purple hat. Otherwise, they looked exactly like Mrs. Dodds, 3 demon grandmothers. They sat in the front row right behind the driver. 2 of them crossed their legs over the aisle, making an X, like they were blocking the exit from the bus. The bus pulled out of the station, and we headed through the slippery streets of Manhattan. "She didn't stay dead long," I said. "The Furies, all 3 of them are here," Grover whimpered. "Die Immortales." "It's okay," Annabeth said, obviously thinking hard. "The 3 worst monsters from the underworld. No problem, no problem. We'll just slip out the windows." "The windows don't open," Grover moaned. "Is there a back exit?" asked Annabeth. There wasn't one. The bus entered the Lincoln Tunnel. It got dark except for the lights down the aisle. It was eerily quiet without the sound of the rain. Mrs. Dodds got up and said, "I need to use the restroom." "So do I," said the second sister. "So do I," said the third sister. They all started coming down the aisle. "I've got an idea," Annabeth said. "Percy, take my hat." "What?" "You're the one they want. Turn invisible and go up the aisle. Let the Furies pass you. Maybe you can get to the front and get out." "But you guys won't be safe." "They might not notice us," Annabeth said. "You're a son of one of the big three. Your smell might cover our smell." "I can't just leave you." Don't worry about us," Grover said. "Go." I took the Yankees cap and put it on. When I looked down, my body wasn't there anymore. I started creeping up the aisle and ducked into an empty seat just as the Furies walked past. Mrs. Dodds stopped, sniffing, and looked straight at me. My heart was pounding. I guess the invisible hat worked. She didn't see me. She and her sisters kept going. I was free. I made it to the front of the bus. The bus was almost through the Lincoln Tunnel now. I was about to press the emergency stop button when I heard hideous wailing from the back row. I looked back. The old ladies did not look like old ladies anymore. They had bats' bodies with wings and long claws on their hands and feet. They held fiery whips. The Furies surrounded Grover and Annabeth, lashing their whips, hissing, "Where is it? Where?" The humans on the bus were screaming. I remembered Chiron saying that humans could not easily see things from our world, but they definitely were seeing something. "He's not here!" Annabeth yelled at the Furies. "He's gone!" The Furies raised their whips. Annabeth drew her bronze knife. Grover grabbed a tin can from his snack bag and prepared to throw it. What I did next was so impulsive and dangerous, I should have been named ADHD Child of the Year. I grabbed the wheel from the bus driver and jerked it to the left. I was hoping the sudden turn of the steering wheel would smash the three Furies against the windows. "Hey!" the driver yelled. "Hey! Whoa!" We wrestled for the wheel. The bus slammed against the side of the tunnel before driving out into the rainstorm. Somehow the driver found an exit off the highway and onto a road with woods to our left and the Hudson River to our right. I hit the emergency brake. The bus screeched and spun a full circle on the wet asphalt and crashed into some trees. The emergency lights came on. The door flew open. The bus driver was the first one out, the passengers running after him. I looked at the open doorway. I was free to go, but I couldn't leave my friends. The Furies were lashing their whips at Annabeth while she waved her knife and yelled. Grover threw tin cans. I took off the invisible cap. "Hey!" The Furies turned, baring their yellow fangs at me. Mrs. Dodds stalked up the aisle. She flicked her fiery whip. Her two ugly sisters crawled toward me like huge, nasty lizards. "Perseus Jackson," Mrs. Dodds said, "you have offended the gods. You shall die." Annabeth and Grover moved up behind the Furies slowly. I took the ballpoint pen out of my pocket and uncapped it. Riptide grew into a sword. The Furies saw my sword and stopped. Mrs. Dodds had felt Riptide's blade before. She obviously didn't like seeing it again. "Give up now," she hissed, "and you will not suffer eternal pain." "Nice try," I told her. "Percy, look out!" Annabeth cried. Mrs. Dodds lashed her whip around my sword hand while the Furies on either side attacked me. My hand felt like it was wrapped in flames, but I kept hold of my sword. I hit the Fury on the left, sending her falling backward into a seat. I turned and sliced the Fury on the right. As soon as the blade connected with her neck, she screamed and exploded into dust. Annabeth got Mrs. Dodd's head and arms into a wrestler's hold and yanked Mrs. Dodds backward while Grover ripped the whip out of her hands. "Ow!" Grover yelled. "Hot! Hot!" The fury-eyed hit came at me again, talons ready. But I swung Riptide, and she broke open like a piñata. Mrs. Dodds was trying to get out of Annabeth's hold. She kicked, clawed, hissed, and bit, but Annabeth held on while Grover tied up Mrs. Dodds's legs in her own whip. Finally, they both shoved her backward onto the floor of the bus. "Zeus will destroy you!" Mrs. Dodds screamed at me. "Hades will have your soul!" "Brachas meas vicimini," I yelled. I wasn't sure how I knew the Latin language. I think it meant, "Eat my pants." Thunder shook the bus. "Get out!" Annabeth yelled at me. We rushed outside and found the other passengers running around in circles yelling, "We're going to die!" A tourist with a camera snapped my photograph before I could put away my sword. "Our bags!" Grover realized. "We left our—" Boom! The windows of the bus exploded, and the passengers ran for cover. Lightning shredded a huge crater in the roof, but an angry wail from inside told me Mrs. Dodds was not yet dead. "Run!" Annabeth said. "She's calling for reinforcements from the underworld. We have to get out of here." We plunged into the woods as the rain poured down, the bus in flames behind us, and nothing but darkness ahead.